Okay, good morning, everybody. Hopefully, everybody had an awesome time on the Power Hour. Okay, so this one today, I feel like it's really good because it spoke to me myself, and obviously, whenever it speaks to me, I know that I can really help other people relate to. Because sometimes I'll read these and I'm like, oh, I'm not going through that right now. So it's kind of funny to see, but this one's called Finding Peace, and then on it says Overcoming Fear. Again, when I first started doing these, I didn't go through the ones, like I didn't exit out of the ones that I had already done. So I can't remember if I did this before. So if I did, just bear with me. But either way, it'll speak to you hopefully. So this one says Overcoming Fear, and it says many people think the opposite of fear is hope, courage, or strength. The true opposite of fear is faith, and when fear causes paralysis, it not only quenches one's peace, but it attacks the foundation of that peace, namely our faith. Peace goes out the window when fear is present. Much of fear is rooted in doubt that God will be present, provide justice or help, or be capable of dealing with the crisis at hand. Faith says, yes, God is here. Yes, God will provide. Yes, God is capable of all things. Much of fear is rooted in threats, sometimes threatening words, sometimes threatening behavior. Faith says, I will not be traumatized by threats. I will act wisely, not fearfully. I believe God will prevent whatever the threat is from overcoming or from ever coming to pass. And if the threat does come to pass, I believe God will help me deal with whatever is thrown at me. When Saul, king of Israel, realized that God had taken his hand of anointing and blessing from him because of his arrogance and disobedience and had placed it instead upon the young man, David, he was furious. He began a campaign to find David and kill him to remove the threat from his life. On the other hand, David felt threatened by Saul's army and on several occasions feared for his life. But scripture tells us that God was strengthened by God's promises, that David was strengthened by God's promises to protect him and one day make him king of Israel. In our modern world, we often read of people who, in spite of intimidation by disease, accident, or danger, press ahead to uncertain outcomes, rejection, defeat, and yes, sometimes victory. Arctic explorers, Olympic athletes, missionaries, venture capitalists, and philanthropists come to mind, so threats do not have to stymie and cripple us. Our challenge in times of threat is not to focus on what might become a reality, but rather to focus on what we can count on being true. Many people are living under a rock cloud of threat today. Some are experiencing the threat of disease, some are facing the threats of injury to their children, or some are hearing threats related to the loss of their job. The answer to all these types of threats is faith in what we know to be true about God and about his love and care for us and his ability to provide all we need, especially his peace, which can carry us through anything. And something that I personally related to when I was reading this is it said that many people are living under a dark cloud of threat today. And I know for me, and I don't know if anybody else can relate to this, but I know specifically this is for me, is there will be weeks or days or whenever when I'm like letting fear paralyze me and like nothing at all has even happened. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, okay, I'll start thinking about like next month, for instance. Okay, next month is my wedding. Most people know that. And so I get like caught in this fear and I'm like, oh my gosh, what if, what if, what if? And it's stealing my joy for today. And let's be real, I cannot remember the percentage of what it was. And it was like an actual fact of like the outcomes that you make up in your head, like 90, I think 95% of them don't actually end up happening. I heard that on a sermon the other day. So if anybody knows that, you can drop it below. If not, it's fine. But we make up so many different scenarios in our head, and then we start putting it on repeat, and then we start believing those. And then when I tell you guys to separate the fears or the lies from the truths, like what Craig Rochelle says, it's so hard for us to do because we're like, okay, well, what's actually the truth? What's actually a lie? It's like when you tell yourself like a lie growing up, and then they tell you like once you say it over and over and over again, your mind really doesn't know what's the lie and what's the truth anymore. I used to tell fibs as a kid, and I honestly couldn't tell you today which one was actually a fib and which one was actually true. And so it's kind of like that. And so I think a lot of us, like, for instance, I know a lot of people go through financial situations, okay? And so many people are like, oh my gosh, well, what Christmas, okay? For Christmas, people are already concerned about Christmas. And I literally started thinking about it the other day, and I was like, nope, 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 I'm not going to think about that today. And it's so funny because Christmas is like kind of far out. I mean, it's closer than it has been, but it's kind of far out still. And I'm like, why would you sit here and be so worried to make up these freaking scenarios? And so many people can make this stuff up in the business. Okay, you guys, for me, this past week has been like traumatizing to my mind because I have been signing amazing distributors, okay? And I've been speaking it over myself. I've been like, oh my gosh, this next girl's my rock star. I just signed a girl yesterday and then Friday, and two of them, I really believe that they're going to be rock stars. And then my mind starts thinking, they're like, but everybody else that you've signed last month, I signed a girl last month that is an absolute rock star too. So I take that back. But like, I start thinking, I'm like, oh my gosh, all these people are going to quit on you. Oh my gosh, you keep telling yourself they're going to be a rock star, but they're going to quit on you just like everybody else has. And not, when I say everybody else, obviously not everybody, but I'm just saying this is what my mind goes to. And it's so funny. So we can relate it to this business because I know so many of you guys can relate to that. And, or like when you have like a customer text you, and you don't know what they're going to say, you have the notification pop up and your mind instantly goes to, oh my gosh, what are they going to complain about? Oh my gosh, what are they going to do? Oh my gosh, are they going to cancel their account? Oh my gosh. And you start thinking negatively. Or when you see something pop up, like a bill pop up, and it's like an unexpected bill. And then you're like, oh my gosh, am I going to continue to have unexpected bills every week, every year, every month, every like this? And you just your mind starts rolling and making up so many different scenarios. And I get so tired of living in this fear state. And I finally started recognizing it. And I told, we had a coffee chat last week. And it's really, really helped. So if y'all have not done this, I've probably said it before, but I'll say it again. If you have a negative thought coming into your mind, and I learned this from a YouTube video, shout out YouTube, but when you have a negative thought come to your mind, instantly use some type of mechanism. You can grab you can squeeze your hands, you can pinch yourself, you can get like a rubber band and like just kind of like pop it. You can do something. I speak out loud at any time, and I've been very, very aware. I noticed when Morgan, she had mentioned something on a Zoom, and she's like, I'm very aware of like what I'm speaking over myself. And I was like, oh, I think I should do that. Like, obviously I should be doing that already, but I'm going to be very aware. And so I started doing it. And so anytime something negative started coming into my mind, I would literally like be a little bit crazy, but I would laugh and I'd be like, that's just not true. Like, I don't have time for this today. And then the thought would go away. And I challenged people to do this on the coffee chat that we had with the leaders. And I just think that like so many of us don't have to choose to live in fear, but we do, because it's the same patterns that we've lived with over and over and over and over again. You know, I talk about my mom all the time, so I can use her as just a prime freaking example. Like, she's just so like negative, and she's so like worst case scenarios. She's so all of these things, and she's constantly living in a state of fear. And I don't want to be like that. And if you know someone like that, it's not fun. It's not cool to be around them, because you're like, wow, you're really worst case scenario. Like, I have to shout out Dallas to this, because Dallas is a worst case scenario thinker. And it's very like strategic in a lot of ways. Like, we literally, since we're going on our honeymoon, he's already had the vaccine. We're not, that's super political topic. I won't talk about that. But he had the vaccine for his healthcare, because he had to get it for the healthcare. And I have not gotten the vaccine. And he was like, you know, like, what if you get COVID though? And then we have to stay in St. Lucia for like a whole amount of days. And then he started coming off of that, and he started making up more scenarios and more scenarios. He was like, I'm not forcing you to get the shot or anything like that. I just think that like, I'm just now nervous about that. And I'm like, why would you, like, no, like, let's not talk about that. And so he's always worst case scenario. Literally something else came up the other day, and he was like, what if that they don't show up to the wedding? Talking about like someone like a caterer or something. I was like, bro, no, we're not going to think about that. And so people like that, there's people in your life that it's okay to have them around, but you can correct them. And I think when you correct them, because he, like, anytime he sees it, it's pretty amazing. I'll start saying like words of affirmation, and he started to catch on. So anytime he says something, I'm like, nope, we're going to have a great day. This is going to be, he's like, words of affirmation. And he like questions me, and I'm like, absolutely. Like, so you want people to know that you're very aware of not living in that fear state, because you can even change someone else's life not living in that fear state. There have been so many times that I could sit here and be like, oh my gosh, this is going to happen. Oh my gosh, this might happen. Oh my gosh, this is terrible. And I start freaking out, and then I'm like, nope, not today. And I can tell you, it's more freeing, the ability to be able to wake up every day and just feel more joyful and trust God. And me and a girl yesterday, I'll shout her out to Rachel on here. We were talking about it, and we've both taken time in the morning and to really space out that time for God in the morning. And she can tell you guys on here too. I'm not trying to like tell your business, Rachel, but it makes a huge freaking difference. Like when you make that time for God, because it secures your faith. And that's what this is talking about, is having more faith instead of fear. And it's not necessarily that. And I heard this also on a Zoom the other day. I looked on YouTube. I think it was like Craig Rochelle or something, but that wasn't talking about like faith is the absence of fear. Like we can still be fearful. It's not necessarily like it's going to completely knock out our fear, but faith is going to overpower that fear. So even in the midst of you being fearful and thinking, okay, what if, you're going to be like, but God will overcome. God will do this. And when you have that confidence armor on you, I've told y'all this time and time again, and you won't be able to experience this until you have it. It's so empowering. And I remember, and I can use Morgan as an example on here just because Morgan's like such a great like mentor, and she's actually like answered a lot of my questions as far as like faith and stuff. And I remember when I first started doing this full time, I was like really scared. I was like, it's commissions, I'm like, oh my gosh, what if I just lose everything? And she's like, but God will always provide, right? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, okay then, like, why are you being fearful? Like God will always provide. And like that has stuck in my mind literally with everything. And I can tell you from being in this business now, like solely from this business, I've been working this for a full year. It's been a full year with no other incomes coming in. He will provide. And it's pretty crazy when you step out on faith. I think that if I would have done it a long time ago, he would have even like allowed me to support myself sooner with this business and just like fully this business. But I was too scared. And so I always felt like I needed a second job, not just because for some reason I thought like I wanted a second job too. And now I look back and I'm like, ew, no, disgusting. But you got to live and learn. But also like I was not really working out of faith. I was just like, okay, I'm going to get a second job just in case. And he's like, sister, why are you even like, you're doubting my ability to help you? And then immediately when I quit my other job last year, it was like the overflow of abundance just like kept pouring in and has not stopped. And I think it's genuinely because I switched my faith or my fear over to faith. And I really want you guys to experience that. And it's very freeing because I do talk to a lot of people day in and day out with this business, just like you guys should be having conversations every day. And I feel like the most topic is fear. I had a girl yesterday that she's a really strong potential distributor, and she was like, I'm honestly just fearful. And I literally just asked the question, and I was like, I totally get that, but honestly, what are you fearful of? Like, what are you fearful of? So we can get to the root of it, because I can bet you if you tell me your fear, I can help you talk you down from that fear really quickly, and maybe tell you a scenario of what has happened in my life where he's showed up and showed out. And then anytime that you are in fear and you're doubtful of what he can do for you, I've told you this again, or I've told you this before, so I'll tell y'all again, write down a time or think about a time or journal out a time or times that he's come through in situations where you didn't think he was going to come through. And he did, because you're still here. So he's came through that situation. Even if you're like negative Nancy and you're like, yeah, but I still went through that and I'm pissed and all this. That was me last year when I felt like the 3-month long depression that I talked about. It was miserable. I will never understand it. And so I still like am like, oh my God, wonder why I went through that. A lot of it was self-sabotage itself, but a lot of it probably had something to do with all the other things. I really don't know, but things like that in your life, or things that went on in my childhood, like I can sit here and question him, but at the end of the day, I'm just like, God, you made me stronger through that. And I'm thankful for that. And I'm faithful through that. And I'm just going to have faith through you. So I think that a lot of us use our old scenarios of what's happened in our lives to sit here and create new fears that we think are rational, but TBH, they're really irrational. They just don't make sense. It's just like, why would you even be fearful of something that you genuinely don't know the outcome to? Like, you don't know the future. God is the only one that knows the future. Why would you sit here and live in fear every single second of the day? I've been there, done that, and it's not fun. It sucks. You would rather be on the joyful end and just be like, it was also someone, it was like a celebrity. Okay. I'll look at like a lot of YouTube videos and a lot of like podcasts and stuff. And so I get very mixed up on who says what, but it was a celebrity, and it was the coach. Okay. It was the owner of the Cowboys stadium. He was on the stage and they were like, do you actually think the Cowboys are going to be good this year? And I don't watch football. For some reason I was watching this with Dallas, and he was like, you know what? I think we have a good chance. And he was just so positive, so happy. And they were like, you know, some people might call you naive. And he was like, I would rather be naive every single day of my life and be joyful than in fear every single day and live a life of of fear and lies or whatever. And when he said that, and I had never heard that man spoke before, I looked at Dallas. I said, I just gained so much respect for that man. And I was just like so proud. And I don't even like football, but and he was like, oh yeah, he's a good guy. He's a good guy. Like starts talking him up and stuff. But I don't know. It was just really amazing to hear that from someone else that's not even in this business. And I don't know where his faith stands. To me, it sounded like he had a lot of faith, but it was just pretty incredible. So I don't know. I think that a lot of us need to live more like life like that. And when you do, and I can thank Morgan on here for like living more towards that, because she's taught me like just why be fearful, like, and then the fears that you have just don't make sense. Like it kind of sounds stupid once you actually say it out loud. And so literally speak your fears out loud, and then when you do, they don't have much of a hold on you. Yesterday I was in the car and there was just like a little tiny thought that just went through my head of like, oh, this person, you haven't heard from her in like 2 days, she might be quitting. And I was like, no, I don't have time for this. Why would I think that? And I said that out loud in my car, and literally immediately I got a text from her saying, oh my gosh, my phone's been broken, I'm going to AT&T today, whatever. And I was just like, see, like the fears just don't make sense. And so call them out on their BS, and I promise you it'll make you feel a little bit happier for the day, or not happier, but like joyful. Two different things. But I really hope that helps. And Rachel, I know that you said you wanted to say something, so you're more than welcome to say something, sister.
Yeah, I was just going to go off of what you said about how we were talking yesterday, because it really is, like, I just wanted to share that, like, it really has helped me so much, just, like, spending more time with God and, like, actually opening up my Bible and, like, reading God's word, because I, like, used to do that a lot in high school, like, and that was so, like, 6 years ago. But in high school, like, I was, like, super close to God, and then I struggled a lot with, like, intrusive thoughts and anxiety and just stuff like that. And ever since, like, when in high school, like, I drifted away from God because of fear. Like, that's always been something that the enemy has used in my life, is fear. It's not really like, you know, drugs or alcohol. Like, yeah, like, I'll go and have a couple drinks with friends, but it's not like get blacked out every weekend or anything like that. He knew that he could always tempt me with, like, fear and anxieties and stuff. And in high school, I dealt with this, like, suicide thought that I just, like, literally could not shake. And it was just like, I'm about to get emotional. But, like, I just couldn't shake it. And it just, like, pulled me away from God so much. And then, sorry, guys. I'm not trying to be emotional. But it just, like, pulled me away from God. And, like, over the past couple of years, I've just, like, been trying to spend more time with him, but it's always been so hard, and, like, has come back into my life. And then finally, like, the past couple months, like, I've just been doing so much better ever since, like, spending more time with him, and, like, I just have more, like, faith and hope and joy. But anyways, that's what I want to share.
No, I think that's really powerful, and it can kind of show you like the growth and like your aspect of like what life is like without God. And it's not like in a sense of saying if you don't know God, like you suck as a person. Like it's not anything like that, but it is like you feel more joy and fulfillment. And I spoke about this really quickly, and y'all can go ahead and drop your prayer requests below so I don't take up a lot of time. But there's this friend of Dallas's, and he doesn't believe in God, and he's going through like a really bad deep depression stage. And he's like one of those people that is like, I think if you were trying to talk about it, he would argue with you and like just be very just confrontational and just be like, well, here's some scientific facts and all these different things. And I'm just like, I ain't got time for that. So I've been trying to figure out, like, I don't know, I feel helpless, but also as like a way I'm like, okay, my job is to sit here and serve and like sit here and teach others. So like do I have a place in this? And so, anyways, the point of that was like seeing him be so hopeless and him not believe in anything and like not believe in God. It's just crazy to me. It is so mind blowing. And so I would rather be on the form of, and obviously I don't ever wish depression on anybody, but like the depression side with believing in God because you have hope. Whereas the opposite, you don't necessarily really have hope. And so, if you are going through a darker season in your life or you don't understand something, I promise you guys, you will hear, and I've heard Shay say this over and over and over again on Zooms too. Open up your freaking Bible. Like, I don't know what else to tell you besides this. And if it doesn't make sense to you, I get it. I have a child Bible. I tell you all the time, it has little passages and it's like, Sally went to her locker today and ate lunch because she got bullied. And I'm like, okay, I'm not in high school anymore, but I still read it because it's very translatable to me. Okay. So get a freaking kid Bible if you need. But I promise you, I don't even know how to explain it, but the connections of the words, once you start really like exercising that muscle, you really like get addicted to it to the point where you're like, you wake up and you're like, wow, it's gonna feel so good when I have my quiet time and get to talk to God and like just write out my feelings and just like speak with him. So it's very powerful. I really hope that you guys do that, and thank you for sharing that, Rachel, because so far you're someone who has messaged me saying that they've reopened their Bible, which is a blessing. And so I want people to do that. Obviously can't force anybody, but it's going to be really cool when I hear more of those testimonies. So I need to stop this recording.